Before we begin, let me say something clearly. This video is not here to challenge your faith, it is here to understand it more deeply. Many of us learned about Radha Rani through devotional songs, temple stories, or television serials. But have we ever paused to ask, when does Radha first appear in the scripture? How did her importance grow over time? What is Golok? And what does Radha truly represent spiritually? Today, we are not choosing between belief and history. We are simply exploring both respectfully. Stay with me until the end and you may discover layers you never noticed before. Part 1. The early text. What do they say? Krishna's life is described in ancient sources such as the Bhagavad Puran, the Mahabharata, the Vishnu Puran. In these early texts, Krishna's childhood in Vrindavan, the Gopis, and the Ras Leela are described beautifully. However, historically speaking, Radha's name is not clearly mentioned in the earliest versions of these texts. There is sometimes reference to a special Gopi in later commentaries, but she is unnamed in early layers. This does not mean Radha is false. It simply means her theological development becomes clearer in later devotional traditions. Pause and think. Did you know this before? Comment honestly, yes or no. Part 2. When Radha becomes central, the Bhakti period. Radha's importance becomes fully visible in medieval devotional literature. A major turning point is the 12th century poetic work, Gita Govind by Jayadev. From the 12th century onward, during the Bhakti movement, Radha becomes the highest devotee. She becomes central in temple worship. She is deeply emphasized in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, especially through Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This development is historically documented. Radha's prominence grew through devotion, poetry, and theology. Part 3. What about Golok or Golok Vrindavan? Now, let's talk about something very important that many people mention, Golok. In certain Vaishnav traditions, especially Gaudiya Vaishnavism, Golok or Golok Vrindavan is described as the highest spiritual realm. It is considered the eternal abode of Krishna beyond Vaikuntha, a transcendental realm where divine Ras Leela eternally takes place. In later texts such as the Brahma Vaivarat Puran and Gaudiya theological writings, Radha is described as eternally existing with Krishna in Golok. Here, Radha is not a historical village girl. She is understood as the eternal spiritual energy, Hladini Shakti of Krishna, meaning Golok is not a physical place on earth, it is a transcendental spiritual plane described in theology. Now here is the balanced truth. The detailed theology of Golok and Radha's eternal presence there develops in medieval Vaishnav traditions, not in the earliest Vedic text. For devotees, Golok is ultimate reality. For historians, it is a theological development. Both perspectives exist. Understanding this respectfully allows clarity without disrespect. Part 4. Was Radha a historical person? There is no confirmed archaeological evidence proving Radha as a documented historical individual from Krishna's era. Most scholars view her as a devotional and theological development. However, in devotional traditions, Radha is eternal, not bound by historical time. This is an important distinction. History deals with documentation, devotion deals with transcendence. Part 5. The meaning and power of saying Radhe Radhe. Now let's address something very real. When people greet each other in Vrindavan, they don't say hello, they say Radhe Radhe. Have you ever wondered why? Is it just tradition or is there deeper meaning? What is the real meaning of Radhe? The name Radha comes from the Sanskrit root Radh, which means to worship, to succeed, to fulfill, to please. So Radha can mean she who worships completely, she who fulfills, she who pleases the divine. When we say Radhe, we are not just calling a name, we are invoking the highest form of devotion. What is the power behind it? In many Vaishnav traditions, traditions, especially in Vrindavan, Radha is considered the compassionate mediator. Krishna represents the supreme absolute. Radha represents the path of love that reaches him. The chanting Radhe Radhe is believed to soften the heart, invoke divine compassion, connect the chanter to bhakti, devotion. In devotional understanding, Krishna may be pleased by knowledge, he may be pleased by discipline, but he is conquered by love, and Radha represents that love in its purest form. Why is Radha's name often said before Krishna's? You may have heard Radhe Krishna. In many traditions, Radha is understood as Krishna's Hladini Shakti, his bliss potency. Without energy, the energetic does not express. So approaching Krishna through Radha symbolizes approaching the divine through devotion. It is not about superiority, it is about a spiritual relationship. Is there any psychological power? Now, let's stay grounded and truthful. From a psychological perspective, chanting any sacred name repeatedly can calm the nervous system, regulate breathing, create emotional focus, increase feelings of connection. This is observed across many spiritual traditions worldwide. The power may not be magical in a scientific sense, but the power of focused devotion and emotional surrender is very real. Now, ask yourself honestly, when you say Radhe Radhe, what are you invoking? A name, a goddess, a vibration, a philosophy, or a feeling of love? Maybe the depth is the real power. Part 6. The deeper spiritual meaning. Now, this is where everything becomes powerful. In Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy, Krishna is the supreme reality. Radha is his Hladini Shakti, the energy of divine bliss. She represents pure love without ego, total surrender, the soul's longing for union with the divine. When Krishna plays the flute, Radha responds. She represents devotion in action. In this sense, Radha is not separate from Krishna. She is Krishna's own loving potency. This is why in some traditions, Radha's name is chanted before Krishna's, because devotion leads to God. Part 7. Why modern portrayals simplify the story. Television often presents Radha Krishna as a romantic drama, but traditional theology is much deeper. Separation viraha in bhakti is not sadness, it intensifies devotion. Radha's longing symbolizes spiritual absorption. This mystical psychology is rarely explained fully in media. Part 8. What happened to Krishna's flute after he went to Dwarka? Now, let's address something many of us grew up believing. In television, dramas, and popular devotional stories, we often see this emotional scene. When Sri Krishna leaves Vrindavan and goes to Dwarka, he promises never to play the flute again, and in some versions he even breaks it. But here is an important question: is this mentioned in the original scriptures? If we look at major early sources like the Bhagavad Puran, the Mahabharata, there is no clear scriptural statement that Krishna broke his flute. The flute is strongly associated with Vrindavan, with his childhood, the gopis and the Ras Leela. But when Krishna moves to Mathura and later Dwarka, his role transforms. He is no longer the playful cowherd. He becomes a ruler, a strategist, a protector of dharma. The scriptures shift focus from romantic, mystical episodes to political and ethical responsibilities. So what likely happened? Theologically and symbolically, many devotional traditions explain it like this. The flute belongs to Vrindavan. Vrindavan represents pure, spontaneous, unconditional love. Dwarka represents royal duty, responsibility, and worldly order. So rather than a literal breaking of the flute, it may symbolize the transition from divine romance to divine responsibility. And here is something profound. In devotional philosophy, especially in certain Vaishnava traditions, Vrindavan is considered spiritually higher than Dwarka. Why? Because Vrindavan represents love without formality. Dwarka represents majesty and authority. The flute symbolizes intimacy. The Sudarshan Chakra symbolizes power. Two different moods of the same divine. So instead of asking, did Krishna break the flute? Maybe the deeper question is, did he leave it in Vrindavan where love remains eternal? Pause and think about that. Part 9. Is Radharani the root form of Lakshmi? Now, let's explore another very important theological question. Is Radharani a form of Lakshmi? To understand this properly, we must look at different Vaishnav traditions. In mainstream Vaishnavism, Lakshmi is the eternal consort of Vishnu in Vaikuntha. Krishna is traditionally understood as an avatar of Vishnu, although in some traditions, Krishna is considered the original supreme from whom Vishnu expands. Now, where does Radha fit into this? In Gaudiya Vaishnavism and some other Krishna-centered traditions, Radha is understood as the Hladini Shakti, the bliss-giving internal energy of Krishna. Lakshmi is also considered a manifestation of divine feminine energy. So, some theological schools explain it like this. Lakshmi represents divine prosperity, grace, and majesty in Vaikuntha. Radha represents divine love, intimacy, and ecstatic devotion in Golok. In certain later theological texts, Lakshmi is described as an expansion of the same divine feminine principle, or in some interpretations, Radha is the original source from whom Lakshmi manifests. However, and this is important, these identifications develop in later theological writings, especially during the medieval Bhakti period. They are not explicitly defined in the earliest Vedic scriptures. Different Vaishnav Sampradaya interpret this relationship differently. So, the respectful and balanced conclusion is Radha and Lakshmi are both divine feminine manifestations within Vaishnav theology. Some traditions see Radha as the original energy and Lakshmi as her expansion. Other traditions treat them as distinct but related forms of divine Shakti. There is no single universal interpretation accepted by all Hindu traditions, and the diversity of understanding is part of Hindu philosophical richness. So now, let's pause for a moment. After everything we have explored, the early scriptures, the Bhakti movement, Golok, theology, devotion, what is the honest conclusion? Radha is not clearly named in the earliest Krishna scriptures. She becomes central during the Bhakti movement. Golok theology develops in later Vaishnav traditions. Radha represents divine love and bliss potency. Saying Radhe Radhe invokes devotion itself. For devotees, she is eternal spiritual reality. For historians, her prominence develops over centuries. Now ask yourself, do these perspectives cancel each other, or do they simply show how spiritual ideas evolve and deepen over time? History looks at documentation, devotion looks at meaning. They are not enemies, they are different lenses, and maybe that is the beauty of Radharani. She exists in poetry, she exists in theology, she exists in sacred philosophy, but most importantly, she exists in the longing heart. Now, I want you to ask something personally. After knowing all this, does Radha become smaller or does she become deeper? Understanding history does not reduce devotion, it refines it. It removes confusion, not faith. Radharani's greatness is not only in stories, not only in dramas, not only in poetry, but in what she represents, love that moves toward the divine without condition. If this exploration helped you see things with more clarity, not less devotion, then let me know in the comments. What does Radharani mean to you? Let's keep this space thoughtful, respectful, open-minded, because true knowledge never divides. It deepens understanding, and maybe that is the real ras. And if you appreciate content that explores spirituality with balance, where devotion and history can sit together without conflict, then this channel is for you. Consider subscribing, not just for updates, but to be a part of a community that values depth over noise and understanding over argument. More thoughtful explorations are coming. Until next time, Radhe Krishna.